In this lesson, we're going to be detailing out the first section of our level. Alright, so we're going to start out with creating and detailing out kind of that cave area. So if we take a look at our level area layout here, we're going to be working in this area here. So we're going to start to build up the ridge line on the outside here, as well as this little drop off from here down to the lower part of the level here. So we're just going to work right in here. So to start out with this, let's grab our modify tool in our terrain section, and we're going to begin working with the flatten brush, the smooth brush, and we're going to basically just start to block this out and sculpt out exactly what we want out of our terrain. So I'm going to be mostly using the flatten brush. So with my pen tool, I'm just going to start coming in here and following along this texture that I've created and start flattening out this area. So I'm going to adjust my outer radius some, and I'm going to come to maybe about 10 or so. And let's try 10, not 200 there. And I'm going to bring my inner radius up some. Let's go ahead and bring that up to maybe about 3. That should be okay. Now on this, let's go ahead and choose the height that we want to use. So I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to pick a height right in here and just start to kind of flatten out this area. Now I'm not worried about any elevations or anything like that. I just want to start fresh with this area being nice and flat. Okay, let's get its general shape, and then we'll start to build up from here. So putting this on an even scale here, and then we'll begin to rise and lower as we need to. Now with this, we can adjust our radius here. So we're going to be adjusting the outside radius some just by hitting the minus button on your keypad of your keyboard. Okay, so just kind of block that out, and then I'm going to hold down Shift, and this is going to bring up my smooth tool. Let me actually take my outer radius up some, and let's just kind of smooth out some of these harder edges. Okay, and this is all being done while I hold down Shift on the keyboard. Let's kind of move around here and just smooth out these edges. And let's start thinking about what we want to build right in here. And I kind of had the idea that I want to build some sort of cave or ravine right in here, just kind of giving it kind of that mystery element there. It kind of goes off into the back into these mountains here. So we can make this some sort of like mountain pass if we wanted to. So we can make this pretty deep in there. Make it pretty creepy to walk in. Okay, and I'm just smoothing out those edges there, just making it a little tighter. Alright, so now that we have that dealt there, let's go ahead and start to work on the elevation of this. So I'm going to drop the elevation from here down. Okay, so we're going to get a little bit lower in this area. So I'm going to choose just a height. I'm going to hold down Control and choose a height right in between there, just kind of midway, and just start to cut that out of my terrain. Okay. And I'm going to go even lower than that. Let's get pretty low here. Let's go down right around there and just start to cut that. We're getting pretty drastic with that, but that's what I'm looking for. I want this area to seem kind of like it's always going uphill. Okay, so let's kind of cut that out, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and smooth that area out and smooth out the cuts that I've made. And you'll see that we got a little bit of a slope here, and that's pretty unnatural. So what I need to do is kind of hold down Control and choose right here in the middle of that slope, and then cut that out and smooth these areas. And what you'll begin to see here is that these angles will begin to kind of meld or mold into one another. So I'm going to go just a little bit lower, do that, and then smooth. And this will generally work to get you a pretty good slope. So you just kind of want to create a slope or a ramp, and then you want to choose a height to cut that in half and then smooth it out. So right in here, if I want to smooth this out, choose a height that's in the middle of this slope here, and then kind of cut that out across the top, hold down shift and smooth. Okay, so now what I have, if I hit Control and G, got a nice little hill here. Nice and smooth. And I can come up over the top of this hill and kind of see that ravine, and I can work my way up there. Okay, let's hit Control or Escape there, and let's work out the rest of this. Now the way that I want this to work here is I want this entire section to be higher than most of this. So I want this to kind of curve around and then drop down to this elevation down here. So let's start to flatten out this area. So I'm going to choose a height. Let's grab our Modify tool, go to Flatten. Let's choose a height right around in here and start to flatten this area out. And you can see how using those textures is really helpful here, because I know the boundaries in which I need to begin sculpting my terrain. So that's why I always paint it first. Okay, just to kind of block that in. Okay, let's grab or pick a height kind of in the middle here and start to cut that out. Let's do this again right up in here and begin to smooth all this out. Okay, we're not going to get too caught up in all of this right now, but I just kind of want to show you the main technique that I use whenever sculpting this terrain is picking a height, flattening it out, smoothing it. Okay, so I want to flatten this out here, and let's go ahead and grab a height. It's got to be lower than this here, so let's grab this height here. And let's cut this out. This is going to be considerably lower, but that's what we're going for. We're just trying to cut out this terrain, shape it exactly the way we want. Okay. And let's start to cut this out even more. Let's smooth that. Alright, so let's go ahead and build this up right in here just a little bit more. And I'm just trying to stay along this brown edge here. So it's kind of creating a little bit of a ridge across this. Okay, so that's what we're getting so far. Kind of break that apart there. Smooth that out. Alright, now I don't want to get too far away from where I'm supposed to be working. It's okay to skip around, but a lot of times it's easy to lose your train of thought whenever you're building a specific area if you jump around too much. I always catch myself working in another area, and then when I come back, I'm always thinking, okay, what was I thinking in this area? What was I trying to achieve? And it can be very difficult sometimes. And then once I've already committed to some changes in other areas, it doesn't really come together as a design. I hit Control Z one time, tried to smooth that out, and just sculpted that. And just raising that up, sculpting that. Okay, so we've got a pretty nice little ridge here. Let me pull this up a little bit higher. Sometimes the angle is a little off, so you're going to be sculpting on an area, and it can be a little frustrating at times if you're not on the right angle trying to flatten terrain out. And I'll choose a height that's a little bit higher there. And what I'm trying to achieve with this ridge right along in here is I want the player to look up from the starting point, which is going to be right down in here. I want them to kind of start out here and look up, and they're going to see these trees up in here. And they may kind of wonder what that is. Okay, they might be able to see through that, and they'll kind of walk up through this area, and they're going to see that this turns off into that area that they first started. So they'll kind of come back, and we'll have a path or something like that just to kind of show that there is something back here, and they'll come back down here into this ravine. So all the while I'm making these level blocks, I need to have an idea of how I want the player to flow, how I want them to move throughout my level. If I don't have that sense about me, then some of my design decisions really don't matter. Because if the player's never going to see it anyway, what's the point of making it? So I need to kind of have some control over the player and really just seduce them to going into a specific area. Okay, and we'll talk about elements on how we can make the player do what we want in our level. Alright, so we've built up this ridge, we've kind of built out our ravine here, and excuse me there, and kind of have an idea of how we want this to work. And this is our first area that we're going to work on, and we're continuing to work on this area. We're going to flesh out this area completely, but I want to go ahead and start to block out the rest of it, so that way you have something to work with after we're finished with this specific course. So we're going to go ahead and save this location in which we're working. This is going to be our area 1. So to save a location, we'll simply hold down Control, and then we'll hit F1. And what that's going to do is save this position so I can always come back to it very quickly. So if I'm over here in this area and I find myself thinking about that first area that I was working in, I can always hit Shift and F1, and you'll see how it snaps back to this area here. That's a quick way to use that go to position toggle. Right, so we're going to continue creating these go to position shortcuts, and if you need to make another one, let's say that we want to make this area 2, we'll hold down Control and then hit F2. So now I can hit hold Shift and hit F1, that'll switch to area 1, and I can continue to hold Shift and hit F2, and that will go to the second area. And that will continue from F1 all the way to F12. Okay, so you have 12 different keys that you can save as go-to position shortcuts. Alright, so that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to continue by working out this main area, and then we might even get into a little bit of the village area as well. So we'll just continue blocking that out in the next lesson.